What's up, Digital World? Today I got a couple things going on with my car. I'm gonna be swapping out my stock airbox with my cold air intake, and I'm also going to be switching out my stock downpipe with the aftermarket one. And then some general maintenance would just be oil changing and rotating my tires. So let's get that started. I'm gonna start with the stock airbox and snorkel. In order to remove it or take it apart, I got to remove the snorkel first. It's only held down by these two plastic screw type clip. I've already loosened them, so just pull them out. You can see you can use a flathead style screwdriver to help you unscrew it. Set them aside, and then to take out the snorkel, you have to lift it and at the same time pull it towards yourself. So up and out, and it detaches. So that part connects to the airbox right here. And then go ahead and just set this aside. Now I'm gonna have to put these back because they do hold the radiator shroud in place. And since the snorkel is no longer there, they actually go in pretty easily. And they're loose, but it's not to a point where it's going to rattle when you're gonna be driving. Next, we're going to start tackling the actual airbox. To start taking apart the stock airbox, it's a lot more involved. There's a lot of clips, screws, and even electrical clips I got to remove. The easiest one to start with is this electrical clip. Right here is a tab that I have to push down. Once I push it down, I pull it towards myself to release it. And then as you can see right here, it's snaked along the side of this airbox. So just gently pull it out and set it aside. And then right down here is a bolt that is holding this piece in place. And then right on the side right here are two studs with nuts on it that holds it in place. This stud and nut is missing because I let a shop work on my car and they broke it without telling me. So I actually had to figure it out after I got home. So we actually only have one nut to remove. Now before we actually do that, we're going to start loosening these hose clamps right here. And all it is a flathead screwdriver. So I'm gonna get my ratcheting screwdriver. It does not have to come completely apart. Just loosen it. Loosen it so that you have enough wiggle room. And then in order to reach that bolt way down there that we talked about earlier, you'll need a long extension. So with my extra long extension and a 10mm socket, I'm gonna squeeze down here and loosen it. This is the bolt. We're going to reuse this when we install the aftermarket intake, so keep it around. Don't misplace it. In order to reach this nut over here, a socket isn't going to work, so we're going to have to go with a traditional 10mm wrench. After a lot of effort, it finally comes out. There's not a lot of room in this area to work on it, so just take your time, be patient, because if you're not, you can do what the shop did, which is break the stud and possibly strip the nut. So again, this is going to be reused, so set it aside. We're going to remove the air hose right here. We already loosened it earlier, so just kind of wiggle it out. It's remove these two coolant hoses. It should come loose, and then basically everything at this point is going to kind of like pull out and lift up at the same time. After this part is removed, make sure there are no hoses attached to it. You kind of have to like work with it as it's coming up, because this one is broken, so that's why it came up so easily. But if it's not, the hose will actually be pretty secured in there. So kind of like pry it out with your fingers and then pull it up slowly. I say yank it out, but yeah, I mean not literally, just slowly take it out. We're going to be taking the mat off because this actually needs to be put onto the new intake. And then just gently kind of like twist and pull up at the same time. So as you can see in this one, the little seal is broken, so we need to replace that. Set aside the MAF sensor. We have to put these screws back in place in the stock gearbox because we will not be reusing them. Set it aside for storage. Take the second half apart, which is just the air element and the second piece. Kind of put things back together and store it that way, just so it's easier to manage. With the stock airbox and snorkel removed, I went ahead and plugged the intake tube here with a microfiber towel to prevent any debris from getting into the intake tract. I now have the car lifted on jacks on all four sides. What I'm going to do next is work on removing the stock downpipe. So I'm going to leave this air intake space open just for accessibility. Now right in the back towards the firewall above where we were working on the air intake is where the downpipe sits. That's where it connects to the turbo. And you see right here the turbo blanket from Perrin. There's supposed to be a turbo heat shield over this, but I took it off when I put the stock downpipe back on just to make it easier to remove everything and then reinstall. I will reinstall it this time around though. On top here there are 3 nuts and 2 bolt and nut combination that mounts the downpipe to the turbo. So I'm going to be using some penetrating lubricant to help me remove the nuts and bolts without stripping or destroying them. There are a couple more bolts and nuts towards the bottom of the car, but I'll point them out when I get down there. This is a lot easier this time around because I don't have to worry about the stock heat shield. As you can see, there are some mounting points that have nothing on them. That's where the stock heat shield would be mounted to. I'm on the underside of the car now, where you can see the 3 nuts that secures the downpipe to the turbo. Right below it you can see the 2 spring hooks. Those are used to secure the turbo blanket. I have to loosen those 2 hooks in order to access the 2 bolts and nuts on top of the downpipe. So let me get to working on that and then we'll move on. I am back up top of the car now. The bolts and nuts have had some time to sit in the lubricant. Just for a little bit more access and clearance, I'm going to remove this intercooler hose. All it is just hose clamp here and a hose clamp right there. So you won't really have to worry about this on the stock intercooler. This is the Process West intercooler, so it has this extra hose. With the intercooler hose removed and the hooks for the turbo blanket loosened earlier, I'm going to shift this blanket around so that I can access the nuts right there. You don't have to completely remove the turbo blanket. Using a wrench and a ratcheting socket. I don't think I need the extension, but we'll see. I'm going to start taking off the nut and bolt. So this is one of the stock heat shield, turbo heat shield bracket. I kept it because, like I mentioned earlier, I actually am using an aftermarket heat shield, which is why it's still here. So once I remove the two bolts and nuts, this piece comes out along with it. And I'm back on the underside of the car now. We have three nuts to remove from the left to the right. The first one's right here. I am unable to access this nut from this angle, so I actually reached around my transmission. If you can see my hand, it's up here, and I'd have to use an open box wrench in order to access it. All right, now we have all of the bolts and nuts securing the downpipe to the turbo off. We're going to move one step down, which is right here where the cat is located. There is one bolt securing the entire pipe to the transmission case. So we're going to have to remove it using the same 14 millimeter. And if I didn't already mention, all of the bolts and nuts securing the downpipe to the turbo uses a 14 millimeter, and this little bolt right here also uses a 14. Here's the bolt on the aftermarket downpipes. This bracket right here does not exist, so we will not be needing to mount anything to it. But just so that we don't misplace this bolt, after this pipe is removed, we're going to reinstall this bolt back onto this little hole right here. It's actually not going to go all the way. Once everything is in, you'll notice there's a little gap, but it should be pretty secure in place.